Hello everyone, it's December the 4th and I'm going to talk about Azure API Management. First, thanks to Gregor and Richard for organizing such an event. I am Charot Amine and I am a cloud DevOps engineer. So, as I told you today, we're going to talk about Azure API Management. What is it? How to use it? How to configure it? How to manage it? And we're going to talk about Azure Arc that enables the deployment of Azure API Management somewhere else than on Azure. Azure API Management is a PaaS service that helps organizations to expose in a managed way their APIs to targeted users, which may be internal, partners, or external. When we talk about API management, we talk about external and internal APIs, analytics and monitoring, security. Using API management, we can expose internal APIs. Let's assume that I have an API that gives information about flights. Well, I have an API which gives information about flights. And I want to expose this API to my internal users. So we can use API management as a top layer so that the API shows up to the end users. I can use API management just right here. So the end user may send a request to API management, which will be forwarded to the API. And of course, the API will get the information, return it, and it will be returned to the end user. By using API management, we will get profit of all the benefits that API management offers. We can also expose external APIs. What does this mean? Let's assume that I'm using, well, it's a famous example. Let's assume that I'm using Google Map API. Oops. I can expose its definition through API management so that the end user may send a request to API management, which will request Google Map, then it will get the information and send it back to the user. One of the most famous use case about API management in Google Map is that the Google Map, if we exceed a threshold, we are going to pay. So using API management, we can control the limit, or we can limit the number of the requests sent to the backend. By the way, it's the backend. Otherwise, we can limit the number of the requests sent to Google Map API, so it can give us more control on the cost of the API, so we can do more economy. And this is the backend. So, in other words, API management has some configuration to do, so we can control the number of requests. So never exceed the threshold. So we are going to save more money. The other point is the analytics and monitoring. We talk DevOps, we talk people, process, products. So we talk delivering a value. API management helps us to deliver it by giving insights, dashboards, information about how your API is used, which is the API the most and least used, about HTTP errors, the capacity. API management can help us to improve delivering a value using all these concepts of analytics and monitoring that it offers. One of the most important concepts in the cloud computing is security. Well, let's assume that I have a user which wants to consume my API. This user. This user, I need to know who is he. So we are talking about authentication. We need to know if this user has the access to the API, I don't know, by validating a token maybe. So we are talking about authorization. On the other hand, API management has the concept of the API gateway, which ensure a secure traffic to the backend. API management has the capacity to use what we call the rate limit. The rate limit can protect my APIs or my backend from a DDoS attack. So let's put all together. Let's assume that I have a user right here and the API, an API just right here. So let's assume that this user wants to send a request to this API. We are going to use API management on the middle so that the request throws a PIM to the API. When the request enters to the API management, we run what we call the inbound policies, where we can check the authentication, the authorization, and the rate limit. Once all these policies are checked, we can send the request to the backend. Where we can run what we call the backend policies. And here we can run, by example, a retry in case of a system failure, by example. So once done, my API will process when it will look for the information about flights, by example, and it will send the information back. Here the API management will run what we call the outbound policies, where we can check the body or something else. Once it's done, API management send the request back to the user. If there is an error on one of these policies, we pass through the error policies, where we can custom the error message, the status code error, or something else. API management will log everything on application insights if it's configured, of course. It will log the request, the exception, the dependencies, and everything. Also, API management, Azure API management has dashboards about capacity of the instance, about the durations on the backend, and duration on the gateway, which helps us to deliver a value. So let's start a demo, and we are going to implement, or we are going to try to implement all these concepts. So let's start the demo. I've already created my instance API management because it takes like 30 to 40 minutes to create an instance. And I've created a function app which will play the turn of my backend. I mean, I have a function app which returns, well, I guess the standard one, it returns my name. It returns the name that I give in the query parameters. So I have my instance, my API management instance. So when I will send a request to the API management, it will send the request to the function app, which will give the hello Amine to API management, and it will send it back to me. So first, here we have a lot of dashboards: the capacity, gateway errors, gateway requests, backend duration, backend requests, overall request duration. So first of all, we're going to create the API. So add an API. My backend will be a function app. So the backend, maybe the logic app, maybe an API app on app service. It may be a Swagger if you have REST APIs, or a blank one, then you'll choose later. So let's start by the function app. Here I have to select my function app. Just have one. Oops. So here I'll name it Azure Advanced Function App. Here also create. And that's all. Now, using this API, I can send a request to my function app, and me as user, I'll send the request only to the Azure Advanced Function app, and it will do the rest. So let's try this. I'll use the legacy developer portal, because by the way, we have a new one. I mean, not here. Oh. Well, let's try here. But I will use the legacy one. So APIs. And here I have my API that I just created, which expose my function app. And now I'm going to send a request. It's a get request. Try it. I need to add the parameter, and just 1 second. Hold on a second. Here we have all the settings of my API. Its name, the suffix, tags, products, and gateways. It's related to Azure Arc. Here, subscription required, but in our case, we won't need it. Security that we will see later, and application insights if we need some logs. So let's save it. Then here, name, and send my name. But so I can send the request. Oh, okay. Hello, Amine. It's okay. Now I'm able to send the request from my laptop to the function app using API management. Cool. But what is the difference? I mean, I can request the function app directly. All right. But I want to get profit from the benefits that API management offers. So I was talking about security, authentication. So let's try to implement that. I mean, by using this following scenario. Well, clear, correct. Well, me as user, I want to send the request to API management. I want the API management to go check on the Azure Active Directory to get a token and get it back and validate it, so I can send the request to the function app. So in other words, this must be okay and the verification must be okay, so I can send the request to the function app. Well, let's try to implement this. Sounds complicated, but it's not at all. You will see. First, we need to create a new application on the Active Directory. So let's go to the application registration. It's the same, I guess. So, new registration. So the name is Azure API Management. Cool. Yes, redirect URI. Well, I'll leave this for later to show you how can we get the redirect URI register. Well, now I got my application right here, so let's get the application ID. Oh, I'll save it just right here. Application ID, and I need a client secret. I'll get it just here. Secrets, new client secret, and API management secret. In 1 year, okay. Oh, just right here. Now I have my application ID and my client secret. I go back to API management. Scroll down to the security tab and click on URI 2. So here we don't need a client registration, so we put only localhost. Authorization code, and here we need the endpoint URL for the authorization. Well, the endpoint for the authorization is login.microsoftonline.com/your tenant ID/auth2/authorize. The token endpoint. So to get the token, it's the same URI, but at the end we have /token. In the body, and here we have to create, to pass our client ID and our client secret that we just got in the beginning of the demo. And this one. Well, once we got this, I can enable the security on my API. Remember, we've seen the settings tab. Oh, and here we have security. So let's enable it. I guess mine is AD node. Save. Now if I go back to the developer portal and I refresh, I have a new column authorization just right here. And I have the authorization code right here. So once I click, API Management will get that token and get it back. And now it worked. And as you can see, we got our authorization token just right here. He added the bureau. And we got our token. So now if I send the request, well, it's a bad one, of course, because I need to add my name, as query parameter. Is this enough? We just get the token. We did not validate the token. So if I send a request without even the token, well, he is asking of a token. Even if I put a wrong one, here, and I send the request, he said, okay, no problem. At least you set a header called reauthorization with a false token. So now we are going to configure what we call the policies. As I told you before, the policies are a set of rules that we can apply on API management so we can configure our API management. So right now we are going to apply a policy that validates this token. It's going to validate if this token has the ability to request or not. API, all operations. So I can apply it on the post and get request. And here we have policies. I already prepared. So let's see where is it. I'm going to validate the GWT. So we'll get the header named authorization. If the given token is not valid, I'm going to return 401 response with the following error message. Add parameter, and here name is the English lowercase. Here I'll add the authorization header bearer. And now I got the 401 response. And if I set a correct token, send. Okay, so great. Now we applied the minimum security required. I'm going to validate a token so I can get into the function app. Next step. I want all my APIs shares the same policies. Of course, I won't duplicate the same thing. So we have what we call products. Products is a logic group of a lot of APIs where we can control the access of the users, where we can apply policies. So all the APIs will have the same policies. So let's add the new one, Azure Advanced. My Azure Advanced policy. And here I'm going to add my APIs. This one and this one. Create. Good. And here in policies, I'm going to set the same policy that validates my token. Cool. And going back to the old one, APIs. And here I'm going to remove this one. And of course, I need to enable security here. Well, before I removed some products, and now the Echo API and Azure Advanced are inside the same product. Azure Advanced as product here, so it's the same here. Now if I go back to my APIs, just here, I'll refresh. They ask me authorization, even if I don't have any policy here. Until Microsoft Ignite, we could only deploy Azure API Management on the cloud Azure. I mean, a user has here on Azure API Management, which called APIs. But now, thanks to Azure Arc for API Management, we can take this API Management and deploy it anywhere. So go down, click on gateways, add one, let's choose a name, a region, in my case on-premise. Oh, I've added it by mistake, but no problem. So here we have our gateway and the APIs that I want to expose. No results because I've added it without by mistake. So now let's add some APIs to expose. In my case, it will be the Azure Advanced and Eco API. Oh. Cool. And here we have the deployment. I mean, we can deploy it through Docker or using Kubernetes. In my case, I'm going to download the configuration. I have a lot because I did some tests, of course. And oh. Yes, I'm using a virtual machine here. So I have my in file, and all I have to do is to copy this command line, which is docker run, and run it up. Okay. All I have to do is to wait. So if I check, so I have right here my API management deployed on my machine. So if I want to try it, let's do a comparison. First, overview, let's go to the developer portal. Sign. Oh, wait a second. Right here. Try it. Add parameters. It was name. I removed the authorization for the demo. So I have to OK. And if I copy the same URL and I pass it here. Oh, come on. And instead of this URL, I'm going to use localhost. Oh, yeah, I don't have certificates. I know. Oh. And here we have hello and all right. So I have API management on my machine and I can request the Azure function on Azure. That sounds good. Now let's change. I mean, I've removed the authorization. Let me add it right now. APIs. Yeah. The usual one. Settings. Go back to Azure Advanced Products. Save. saved. Cool. Let's try it. I shouldn't click there. No problem. Name Amine. Send 401. All right. Let's send the request here. 401 using localhost. So the configuration has been updated automatically and in near real time, which is a cool thing. I mean, I really appreciate this thing for the hybrid cloud, and it could be very useful if you want to do some local tests. You can just take your Docker image and run Docker run, and you will have your API management running and working and automatically updated. Automatically updated means that API management on premise pull every 30 seconds the new configuration or the configuration of API management on Azure. And also API management on premise sends every 1 minute a heartbeat to the API management on Azure so that it can get an idea about the status of the API management on premise. That's why we need to open flow in the outbound, and only this. But what if we lose this connection? Well, API management on premise will keep functioning, but it won't be able to pull the new configuration or send the new or send the heartbeat to the API management on Azure. API management will keep getting the configuration from memory until you get back your connection. When you get back your connection, API management will automatically get the new or pull the new configuration since it's a timer of 30 seconds, which is a normal thing. So that's all about Azure Arc and API management. I am not good at goodbyes, but I hope you learn things throughout this event, Azure Advanced Calendar. And thank you once again for organizing such an event. And if you have any question, please hashtag it on Azure Advanced Calendar on Twitter, and of course I'm going to answer it. And ciao.